She was halfway through a joke about me when the Bluetooth speaker cut out. One of those mid-sentence glitches that made the room fall into that strange moment of silence, the kind where you notice your own breathing and suddenly everyone hears what wasn't meant to be heard. And then he said, "Why don't we just stay home and watch documentaries like we used to? Like that's still romantic, right?" She snorted. "God, I swear, I'm married to sleep mode." Laughter exploded around her. The kind people save for crowds, not because something's funny, but because they're supposed to laugh. I was standing behind the kitchen doorway, not part of the party, not even part of the furniture. I was background noise, or maybe just the silence after it. There were open bottles on the counter, two half-empty wine glasses that looked identical. One had her lipstick on it. The other didn't. The dishwasher light blinked clean. Everything else in that moment felt the opposite. I looked at the wine glass without lipstick, and I knew it wasn't mine. She hadn't noticed I was there. No one had. Not even Lyle, the guy who had his hand resting far too casually on the small of her back, like he'd done it 100 times and only forgot to hide it tonight. The room kept laughing. Her voice soared above the rest like a trumpet solo in a band I was never invited to join. I didn't shout, didn't ask questions, didn't break anything. I just stepped into view. Her eyes locked on mine mid-smile, and for one terrifyingly honest second, I watched her try to decide which face to wear. Shock? Guilt? Annoyance? Regret? But none of them won. She just stared, jaw slightly open, like the screen had frozen on her face. I turned, walked past the coats, past the noise, past the second glass that didn't belong to me, and opened the door. She said nothing. And still, the joke ended. No punchline. No applause. Just that thick, awful silence after someone laughs a little too hard at something that wasn't actually funny. But if she thought that was the end of it, the quiet exit of her boring husband, she was wrong. I wasn't going to yell. I had something better planned. And it started the moment I disappeared. I didn't go home. I didn't even get in the car right away. I just walked, aimlessly, hands in my pockets, feeling the weight of every breath like it owed me an explanation. The sidewalk was slick from a drizzle that must have happened while I was watching her joke about me. Or maybe it started when I turned around. Honestly, I didn't notice. My ears were still ringing from the silence that followed me out the door. It wasn't just her laughter that died back there. Something else did too. Something I hadn't fully named yet. I ended up in a 24-hour diner. The kind with the laminated menus, cracked vinyl booths, and a server who doesn't care whether you're there to eat or fall apart. I slid into a corner booth and ordered coffee I didn't want. The cup came with a smear of lipstick on the rim. I didn't say anything. I just stared at it. Fitting. At some point, I pulled out my phone and opened the group text thread I was never supposed to see. I scrolled past the emojis, the playlist links, the talk about parking and wine preferences. Then I found it, a photo. Someone had taken a picture of her, mid-laugh, one hand in the air, the other wrapped around Lyle's shoulder like it belonged there. She looked happy. The kind of happy she used to fake with me. Or maybe she never did. Maybe I only thought she did. The worst part? I didn't feel angry. I felt replaced. Quietly, efficiently, and without resistance. Like a phone update that pushes the old system out without asking. I stared at that photo until the screen dimmed. Then I opened another app. Not to text her. Not even to track her. I opened my notes. And I started typing something I never thought I'd write. It was a list. Not of what she'd done. I already knew that, even if I hadn't seen it play out fully. It was a list of all the times I'd felt like a guest in my own marriage. Times I'd laughed at jokes that hurt. Times I'd held her while she cried about things she never explained. Times she said, "I'm tired," when I asked if we were okay. And most of all, the times I shrank just to give her more room. When the list passed 20 bullet points, I stopped. Not because I was done, but because the pain started to feel like background noise, like the hum of the fridge behind the counter or the soft scrape of someone's spoon against a bowl. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message from her. Short. 3 words. "Where are you?" No punctuation. No apology. No fear. Just a question. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I paid for the untouched coffee, walked out into the foggy night, and drove somewhere she wouldn't think to look. Somewhere quiet. The next morning, I planned to send her something. Not a breakup text. Not a confrontation. Something better. Something quiet. Something final. And when she saw it, I knew her hands would shake. I knew her breath would catch. Because some exits are loud and messy. But mine? Mine was surgical. And it had only just begun. By the time morning light bled through the window of the cheap motel I'd holed up in, I'd already been awake for hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind ran loops around a thought that had no finish line. Not rage, not revenge. Just this hollow hum of, I can't go back. I sat there staring at the TV playing some muted infomercial, letting the cold air from the window unit numb the space around me. I wasn't mourning her. I wasn't even mourning us. I was mourning who I had let myself become. A placeholder. A background character in a story she wrote without me. Her message from the night before still sat unread. Another followed it at 3:14 a.m. Lowell? Are you seriously ignoring me? Still no punctuation. That little detail ate at me more than it should have. That lack of effort. It was always like that. No real concern. Just indignation that I'd disrupted her perfect little play. I took a long shower in lukewarm water and shaved while staring into a mirror covered in toothpaste stains from strangers. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and composed the message I knew would change the temperature of her day. No yelling. No sarcasm. Just clarity. You said I was boring. That I live in sleep mode. But last night, the only thing I saw was a room full of people laughing because you gave them permission to mock me. And that was the moment I realized, I'm not asleep. I'm done. You won't find me at home. You won't hear from me until I've decided what happens next. I won't play the clown in your routine anymore. Let your applause carry you for now. I'm gone. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. Then I turned my phone off completely and slid it into the drawer under the motel Bible, where I wouldn't be tempted to check it for her reaction. It was almost noon when I drove home. Quiet suburban streets, lawns trimmed too perfectly, like nothing bad could ever happen behind those doors. When I turned onto our block, I saw her car parked crookedly in the driveway, engine running, door ajar. I didn't stop. I kept driving past like a stranger. Instead, I parked 2 streets over and walked back on foot, unnoticed. I slipped into the house through the side door she never remembers to lock, like I always do. Like a ghost, again. And there she was, pacing the living room, barefoot, still in the clothes from last night. Her makeup was smeared, maybe from tears, maybe from sleeping in it. I wouldn't know. I didn't care anymore. She hadn't noticed me yet. But I wasn't there to argue. I was there for one thing, to collect what was mine. I went straight to the small locked box in the study, the one where I kept my passport, savings account documents, and the deed to a little piece of land in Idaho my uncle left me years ago. She'd never cared about it. Said the country made her skin itch. I always told her I liked the quiet. I guess now I'd finally get to test that. I grabbed the folder, checked everything twice, and packed a small duffel bag with clothes from the upstairs closet while she was still searching her phone for clues. I was halfway down the stairs when she finally saw me. Lowell, she whispered, like saying my name too loud might make me vanish. I looked at her, really looked at her. Hair wild, mascara streaked, panic blooming behind her eyes. This wasn't the confident, party-ready woman from last night. This was someone facing a stage with no script. Her audience had left, and she had no jokes left to tell. You're leaving? She asked. Her voice cracked. I didn't answer. I just walked out the front door, slow and quiet, while she stood barefoot and shaking behind me. And as I pulled away from the curb, I watched her through the rearview mirror. She didn't cry. Not yet. But she would. Because the thing about losing someone like me, someone who forgives too much, bends too easily, stays too long, is that when we do finally go, we don't come back. And I wasn't finished disappearing yet. I didn't drive straight to Idaho. That would have been too clean, too obvious. Instead, I went to a small town about an hour north, a place we'd once stopped for gas during a road trip, and she joked it smelled like boredom and mothballs. I remember liking it. There was something about how the trees leaned into each other, how the diners looked untouched by time, how people didn't rush. I found a cheap extended stay motel off a side road, paid cash for a week, and unpacked my quiet into the drawers like it was something I'd been holding in a suitcase for years. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not an emotional plea. Not a threat. Just context. I didn't intend to send it. I think I just needed to see the words lined up, to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That the version of our marriage I'd lived through wasn't just a bad read on my part. Halfway through writing, I remembered something. Something small but sharp, a forgotten detail that had now become the fuse to everything else. A few months ago, while rearranging boxes in the garage, I stumbled on a shoebox tucked behind some old Halloween decorations. I opened it, expecting spiderwebs or receipts. Instead, I found a bundle of printed photos Clarissa in bars I'd never been to, wearing dresses I'd never seen, with people I didn't recognize. But that wasn't what hit me. It was the dates. One of them was from a night she told me she was at her sister's baby shower. I remember because I made her favorite dinner that night and waited 2 hours past midnight before giving up and falling asleep on the couch. When I confronted her, she said it was from years ago. Old stuff from college, she'd shrugged. Why are you even going through boxes I told you not to touch? And just like that, I backed off. Like I always did. But now, sitting in this creaky motel chair, I realized something I hadn't then. One of those bars in the photo had only opened 2 years ago. She hadn't even lied well. She just knew I wouldn't press. Because I never did. That changed something in me. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. I expected a barrage of messages, maybe even missed calls from mutual friends. But there were only 2 texts from her. Where did you go? Are you seriously doing this? Not even a voicemail. No apology. No panic. Just confusion. Like I was a delayed package she expected would arrive eventually. But what she didn't know was that I'd left behind something else. Something I'd placed deliberately where I knew she'd find it. In the top of the closet, above the winter coats, was a red envelope with her name in my handwriting. Inside was a photo of the 2 wine glasses from the party, hers and the one without lipstick. I'd taken it before walking out. Behind them, if you looked closely, was Lyle's hand on her waist, fingers curled too comfortably for it to be innocent. On the back of the photo, I'd written just 6 words. I was the joke. Not anymore. I imagined her finding it. Alone. Hungover. Rereading it like it might change the ending. And then came the email. From my sister, strangely enough. She'd just received a message from Clarissa asking if I was at her place. Clarissa said she was worried. That I was acting erratic. That she just wanted to talk. Talk. We hadn't truly talked in 2 years. Not without her phone in her hand or sarcasm in her throat. But now, when the performance had no audience, she wanted sincerity? Too late. I logged into the bank account I'd kept separate since year 3 of our marriage, the one she didn't know existed. I transferred what little was left in our joint account back to her, down to the last cent. I wasn't going to fight over money. I didn't want a war. I just wanted distance. I wanted out. And I wasn't done making that clear. Because Clarissa still thought this was a tantrum. She thought I'd cool off and come home like a chastised puppy. But what she'd find next would make her realize. I didn't vanish. I woke up. 3 days after I disappeared, she changed her tone. It started with a missed call from an unknown number that I ignored. Then another, and another, always the same area code. I let them pile up, watching them blink on the screen of the burner phone I'd bought in the gas station on the edge of town. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I answered one. Lowell. Her voice cracked like an old cassette tape. It's me. Please. Just, where are you? I didn't say anything. I let the silence hang so heavy it almost hummed. Then I ended the call. That was the moment she stopped pretending I was being dramatic. Because silence is more terrifying than rage, and for the first time in her life, Clarissa was facing something she couldn't laugh off, charm through, or manipulate into submission. That same day, I got an email from our neighbor Sharon. We weren't close, but she was the kind of person who paid attention to the things others missed. The subject line read, "Everything okay?" She wrote. Not trying to pry, but Clarissa's been pacing in the driveway every morning. This morning I saw her yelling into her phone and throwing something at your car. Only, the car's gone now. Did you move it? Or did she tow it? Just worried. Let me know if you need anything. I hadn't moved it. That car was still parked 2 streets away. But now, it wasn't. Clarissa had finally realized I wasn't coming back. And like a child who doesn't know how to apologize, she lashed out instead. I called a tow company under a fake name and found out what happened. She'd had the car removed, abandoned property, she'd called it. As if it was just another thing I'd left behind carelessly, like a sweater or a cup in the sink. I didn't even flinch. Because this wasn't a surprise. It was Clarissa's default setting. Erase the problem, act like it never existed, and keep moving. But this time, she didn't realize the house itself would start working against her. You see, I'd installed a security system with cloud backups 2 years ago, after our home was almost broken into. She never bothered to learn the app. She thought it was annoying, said the motion alerts buzzed too much while she was working. But I never disabled them. I just muted the notifications. And now, from a cheap motel 3 counties over, I started watching the house that once held everything I thought was mine. At 2:16 a.m. that night, the cameras caught her stumbling out the front door in a robe, barefoot, dragging a trash bag to the curb. Not the usual kind, not a kitchen bag. One of the thick black ones, bulging. She looked around before setting it down like she was tossing evidence into a lake. I rewound the footage 3 times, zooming in. Her hands were shaking. Her robe belt was untied on one side. Her face was red like she'd been crying or drinking. Or both. Whatever was in that bag, it wasn't garbage. It was something she didn't want me to find. Or maybe, more importantly, didn't want herself to see again. I emailed myself the footage. Labeled it, Self-Erasure, 2:16 a.m. I didn't contact her. I didn't need to. Because while she was unraveling alone in that house, I was carefully preparing something she never expected, a timeline. A quiet, irrefutable trail of everything she did and everything I allowed, and how one fed the other like rot spreading through wood. I went through my journal, the one I started keeping 3 years ago when she stopped looking me in the eye during dinner. Page by page, I cross-referenced it with my photo backups, emails, receipts, and messages she thought I hadn't seen. I built a folder called, For Clarissa, The Truth, and it was growing fatter by the hour. But I wasn't planning to send it yet. No, it wasn't time. Because I knew her better than she thought I did. I knew the exact moment she'd crack, not when she was confused, or angry, or embarrassed. But when she felt alone, completely alone. And that moment, it was coming faster than she realized. I didn't expect her to go back to work so soon. But she did. Or at least, she tried. The security footage showed her leaving the driveway at 7:42 a.m. on Wednesday morning, hair tied back, dark glasses, that same oversized handbag she always carried when she wanted to look unbothered. The car pulled out slowly, like even the engine was unsure if she was making the right move. At 9:18 a.m., I got an alert from the back door camera. Motion detected. Living room sensor active. She'd forgotten to disarm the system. Or maybe she didn't know it still ran. Either way, her mistake was my open door. I watched her walk in, stiff and mechanical, like the house itself made her skin itch. She dropped her bag in the entryway and stood there for a full minute, staring at the spot where my shoes used to be. I watched her skin the silence like she was expecting to hear something, keys jangling, the faint sound of coffee brewing, my voice asking if she remembered to buy creamer. But there was nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the soft tick of the grandfather clock I'd fixed with my own hands the month after we moved in. She went upstairs. I clicked into the hallway camera. That's when I saw her open the closet. She stared at the space where my things had been. The shirts were gone. The second row of shoes. The old navy peacoat she used to make fun of in the winter, calling it Professor Lowell. All of it, gone. What remained was the red envelope with her name still tucked neatly on the shelf, unopened. She finally reached for it. I watched her read the back of the photo again, lips barely moving as she mouthed the words. I was the joke. Not anymore. Then she slid down the wall and sat on the carpet, knees pulled to her chest, holding the picture in one hand like it was burning her skin. That should have felt like justice. But it didn't. Not exactly. It felt like watching someone read a story they didn't know they were the villain in. And she wasn't done reading. Because after 20 minutes of sitting motionless, she stood up, walked into my study, and opened the second drawer on the left. The one she used to call the drawer of doom, because I kept everything in there. Tax receipts, broken chargers, half-written notes, scribbled phone numbers I never called. She rummaged through it until she found the black flash drive I'd left wedged between 2 envelopes. Labeled in white marker, Clarissa, if you ever wonder. She plugged it into my old laptop. I couldn't see the screen, but I didn't need to. I knew what was on it. The slideshow of pictures. The screenshots of text threads. The receipts from nights she said she was with her sister. The photo of her hand in Lyle's back pocket outside that bar. Audio of her laughing in the background of a voice memo, the same one she swore she never went to. And at the end, a voice recording of me. Just a few minutes. My voice tired, but calm. Saying everything I never had the courage to say in person. You told me once that I was too soft for this world. That I felt too much. I used to believe that was weakness. Now I know, it's strength. Strength to love someone fully, even when they leave you behind emotionally. Strength to walk away without trying to destroy what's left. I didn't vanish, Clarissa. I healed, somewhere you can't reach. You broke something in me. But it wasn't permanent. Not this time. The flash drive auto-ejected at the end. She just sat there staring at the screen. No crying. No yelling. Just stillness. Later that night, I got a voicemail. First one. She said, Lowell. I watched it. All of it. I didn't know you. I didn't know you kept it all. I didn't know you noticed. That was the most honest sentence she'd spoken in 2 years. She didn't know I noticed. Because I wasn't loud about it. I didn't scream or accuse. I just watched. Logged every broken promise like loose bricks in a wall that would eventually collapse under its own weight. Now she was standing in the rubble. And the only sound left in that house was her. Echoing. Alone. She left the front porch light on for 3 nights in a row. The same light she used to nag me about, saying it wasted electricity and made the house look like we were trying too hard. I used to turn it off religiously before bed. Now, from the motel camera feed, I watched it glow like a silent beacon, as if she believed I might see it and come home. As if a light bulb could undo a decade of erosion. The house itself had started to look unfamiliar. Like it had aged with her. The lawn was uncut. The flower beds were sagging. And from the inside cameras, I could tell she wasn't sleeping in our bedroom anymore. Instead, she'd curled up on the living room couch with throw blankets and one of my old sweatshirts balled up under her head. I only knew it was mine because of the faded college logo she used to make fun of. She said it smelled like basement books and oatmeal. But she was clinging to it now like it held the last remaining proof of something real. Then came Thursday. She hosted a dinner. I know, sounds ridiculous, right? But there it was on the camera feed. A table set for 4, candles lit, wine glasses out, playlist humming low in the background. And then came the knock, 1 guest, then 2 more. I didn't recognize them. Young, polished, probably new coworkers. She greeted them with her signature sparkle and laughter, the kind she used to save for crowds, the kind that always meant, watch me perform. The wine flowed fast. So did the stories. She started telling one about a ski trip we never took, with details so specific I almost believed her myself. Then she pivoted to a fake engagement story, saying I'd proposed at a jazz club, again, a total invention. I watched from the feed, slack-jawed, as she painted herself into a tragic heroine, the poor, unloved wife who tried everything while her husband just withered. And then she said something that made my stomach cave in. He just walked out one night. No warning. No note. Just gone. I guess some men can't handle being married to a woman with ambition. They clinked glasses. I stared at the screen, stunned by the simplicity of her rewrite. It was elegant, cruel, and familiar, because Clarissa never lost control. She just rewrote the script. But what she didn't realize, what she would never be able to rewrite, was what I did next. The next morning, I mailed 4 identical padded envelopes. Each one contained a USB drive. Each one labeled with a simple sticker, for your awareness. One went to her manager at the firm, a man I'd met twice, who shook my hand like he was allergic to emotion. One went to HR, an address I found buried in their company's fine print. One went to Sharon, our neighbor, who had once watched our cat for a week and handed it back like it was made of glass. And one went to Clarissa herself. Inside each drive was a curated reel, not to humiliate her, not to ruin her life, but to dismantle the lie. Videos of her laughing about my sleep mode, pictures with Lowell, text threads where she coordinated weekend conferences while booking hotel suites under fake names. The party footage. The closet reaction. The living room breakdown. All time-stamped. All documented. But what set this apart, what made this irreversible, was the letter I enclosed with it. Typed. Clean. For paragraphs. The final one read. She said I vanished. That I gave up. But what she won't say is that I tried, for longer than I should have. And when the laughter turned against me, I didn't fight. I walked. Not to hurt her, but to save whatever part of myself was left. If you received this, it's because she told you a version of our story. Now you have mine. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. The responses came slower than I expected. But they came. Sharon sent a 2-line email. I had no idea. You deserved better. Let me know if you ever need a friend. The HR department sent a sterile acknowledgement. But the real message came 2 days later from Clarissa. It wasn't a voicemail. It was a video message. She was sitting at our kitchen table, no makeup, tear-streaked cheeks, her voice hoarse. And for the first time, she wasn't playing a part. Lowell, what did you do? She whispered. But I didn't answer, because her curtain had dropped. The theater was empty. The audience had left. And when the applause didn't come, she finally heard the truth in the silence. 2 weeks passed. The leaves in the small town where I'd taken shelter had started to fall in clusters, painting the sidewalks in shades of rust and amber. The air had that early autumn bite, the kind that forces you to breathe slower, deeper. For the first time in years, I was waking up without that gnawing pit in my stomach. No tension, no hesitation, just stillness. Real, earned stillness. Clarissa hadn't sent another message since the video. No email. No call. Nothing. Maybe she finally realized there were no magic words. No punchline that could bring me back into the script. Maybe, for the first time, she was just sitting with it all, not trying to fix it, not trying to spin it, just feeling the weight of it. And me? I didn't just vanish into obscurity like I thought I would. I started rebuilding. The little piece of land in Idaho? I drove there. Stayed in a quiet cabin for 3 days, just watching the sky change colors. It was quiet in a way I hadn't known I craved. I read books, not out of distraction but interest. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since college. I made a list, too. A new one. Not of betrayals or regrets, but of things I wanted to feel again. Comfort in my own skin, joy without guilt, love without performance. And then, something unexpected happened. I met someone. No, not in a dramatic rom-com way. There was no accidental coffee spill or strangers trapped in an elevator. It was quiet. Organic. I was at a tiny bookstore downtown, one of those places that smells like cedar and forgotten paperbacks, and I struck up a conversation with a woman named Marcy. She had unruly hair, laugh lines she didn't hide, and the kind of presence that didn't fill the room but steadied it. We didn't talk about our pasts. Not right away. We talked about poetry, music, the absurdity of networking events. She said I had a calming voice. I said she had the kind of laugh that didn't need an audience. Weeks turned into shared meals, long walks, small moments. And somewhere along the way, I stopped checking the security footage. I stopped rereading Clarissa's last message. I even deleted the folder labeled, "For Clarissa, the Truth." Not out of forgiveness, but because I no longer needed it to define my survival. One morning, as the sky turned pale gold behind the trees, I looked at my reflection in the window and saw something I hadn't recognized in a long time. Peace. I don't know what happened to Clarissa after everything. I don't need to. I don't carry anger anymore. I carry lessons. I learned that staying quiet doesn't make you weak. It just means your power is rooted in peace, not noise. I learned that walking away isn't quitting. Sometimes, it's the bravest act of all. And most of all, I learned that love, real, honest love, starts when you stop begging to be understood and start learning to understand yourself. To anyone reading this who feels small, erased, or overlooked, I promise you, there's life beyond it. There's a version of you out there that isn't shrinking for anyone. Find him. Fight for him. And when you do, don't ever look back.